Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this Facebook Live. I am Emily McIntosh with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Next to me right over here is Ansley Herring-Wegner. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this incredible book. You've seen it on our Facebook page almost every single day. This Day in North Carolina History. It's been on the blog, and now it is a coffee table book. That is so exciting. Thank you again for joining us. Sure.
Well, it's been about 6 years of my life, so I'm happy to talk about it for a few minutes.
6 years. So let's start at the very beginning of the 6 years. Talk to me about how the concept and inception of This Day in North Carolina History began and how we got from that to a book.
Okay. So about 6 years ago, we were working on various blogs, trying to come up with ideas, and somebody in the information and marketing section came up with, how about a This Day in North Carolina History? And I jumped right in on it. I enjoy doing this sort of work, and sort of took the lead in trying to come up with topics. We had I remember the meeting well. We sat on the third floor and talked about where we would be able to get our ideas for topics. And the first thing was obviously the historical markers. That's what my office does. We have a database of those. So right off the bat, we populated our database for the This Day program with the markers. So if we had an essay that included a specific date for anything, immediately we had something. But because it's kind of an interesting thing, we started it with probably only about 6 weeks lead time, which led to a curious way of doing the blog over the years. Essentially, we used the markers and a few things to sort of populate a database, but ultimately it came down to, we need to find something for this day. So it's sort of a circuitous way of going about the history, and it's not completely inclusive in that some days we had an easier time of finding things, and some days it might be something kind of odd. But essentially we were trying to fill a day for 4 years. Governors were sort of the low-hanging fruit, so we often, I sort of joked all through the years, was if a day features the birth or death of a governor, it was a day we struggled, because those are kind of not all that exciting history, although the birth or death of a governor gives you the chance to tell what that governor did.
Sure,
that's important, right? But some days were so difficult that we have the birth and the death of a governor included in the book, because we had to fill the days with something.
Sure.
So it is sort of a curious mix of topics, just because of the way the blog came about.
Sure. Well, what I like about that too is, to me, kind of doing a day as you go sort of blog style feels like almost like a treasure hunt, kind of, like, let's see what we can explore about North Carolina's history on that day, which to me is really fascinating.
Sure. I actually compared it to being sort of like a calendar, where you open the day, you open up the little thing to get your message for Christmas, and an advent calendar, and so it really kind of was like that, like, what happened on December the 19th? Not much.
That would be a great jumping off point for this book. You could make a calendar of each day in history, so people could do the exact same thing you sort of did, metaphorically.
Exactly, and that's, so when about 3 years into the blog, I talked with my bosses saying, this has been a lot of work, and I really don't want it to just disappear when we're done. We had set the limit on the blog as 4 years of new content, and I said, I'd hate for it to just go away. So actually the first idea was a calendar. We discussed various types of calendars, the tearaway kind, like the ones that have the quote of the day or whatever, which I still kind of like that.
Yeah, me too.
But ultimately we decided on a nice coffee table book.
Sure. So my next question for you, obviously North Carolina has a very rich and vast and long history. So I, talk to me a little bit about, as far as, there is so much to cover in North Carolina history, and though there may have been some difficulties on specific days, surely there is a lot to cover. So how did you kind of decide what to put into the book as far as what was on the blog? How were there specific events in history that maybe not necessarily had a day? Like,
Sure.
how did that go exactly?
Well, again, it probably is more about the day than anything. What Jeff Miles and I are the ones that really did the content for the blog. And Jeff and I would individually try to fill the days. And then we would meet and decide which was the story that needed to be told. So, again, for some things we really did go in and say, a lot of them are, say, products, the North Carolina products. We might just say, we've got to find a day that works for, Vicks Vapor Rub or a product. And so Mount Olive Pickles was one where we just said, okay, what's a day? And I actually contacted Mount Olive Pickles for that one. And we got, I think it was the date they incorporated. But so you want to find a day for some things. But for the most part, it really was, we've got to fill up April. What are we going to find? And then it's sort of just a matter of a couple of people who knew a decent amount about North Carolina history, just sitting down and saying, well, I think this is the story that we should tell.
Sure.
At the time, we gave preference to things that celebrated things within DNCR, our historic sites, our state archives, our things that might feature historic preservation. So we did sort of tip in our favor to feature things in our agency.
Sure. That is an excellent answer to that question. I want to remind everybody watching on Facebook that if you have any questions for either of us about the book, about this day in North Carolina history, be sure to comment, and we will read those at some point during this presentation. So my next question for you is, as you can see on this book, there are a lot of images, beautiful pictures depicting the different days in North Carolina history. You've got some of the historical markers here.
We do.
You've got some people. So I'm sure that in the 6 years that it took you to find these images, and even in however long it took you to come up with this book, that there are some incredible stories about how you came to get these images. So talk to me just a little bit about overall what that experience was like.
Sure. So initially for the blog, Jeff did everything. Bless his heart. He found all of the pictures during the blog, and for the most part, unless somebody who helped us with one supplied us with a picture. And he was able to use things that we maybe we might not be able to use for the book, because when you're doing things on the internet, you can obviously steal. You can borrow images from the internet. They're not as good quality.
Sure.
They work fine on the blog. I had basically spent the better part of a year trying to find the images for the book. The low-hanging fruit was always a historical marker, because we have the pictures of all of those.
Yeah.
But again, there's but so many historical markers that you need to use in the book. The state archives was great in supplying us with a lot of images for the book. But there's obviously things that beg for pictures, and it was really challenging to go out and try to and say, we've got to find a picture of something. And this is a good example on a page where there's three. I might just find one great image, and the book designer Sheila Carroll did a great job of sometimes making it sort of fill the whole page.
Yeah.
And then some of the days I was able to find a whole lot of things, and so there's a big variety. There's some of the pages that have a a single image, and some that have multiple images. Again, that was a real learning experience of trying to find images, get copyright, get good quality, be cheap, because with 365 days, I had a whole lot of images to try to find.
Sure.
And we had to have something for every page. So that was a real challenge, and it really was about a year's worth of work.
Wow. It seems, I get the idea of, or I imagine you, as far as finding these images over the year for this book, kind of like a detective, just kind of like in your own special way, calling the right people, emailing the right people, getting to the one thing that you need.
Sure. And that, actually, I was a detective. And that was one of my first jobs out of college. It did not prepare me for this.
Very different.
I learned as I went. I think at the beginning I was just trying to take the low-hanging fruit. I was just trying to get an image to fill the page. And as I learned, and luckily I actually started in December and worked up. So some of the pictures at the beginning of the book might be better, because I definitely learned a lot. It's definitely a process of learning who to contact. I got braver as I went, and in terms of just reaching out and asking people. One of my favorite stories was I reached out to the family of Ernie Barnes, the artist who's got a fabulous exhibit now at the History Museum.
Yes.
By that time, in gathering pictures, I had gotten brave enough to just say, hey, why not? I'm going to email them. I found the administrator of his estate, and I just sent an email, and she got back to me within a day, and she was great, and she sent me pictures. She actually ended up coming to Raleigh, and we set up a meeting for her to talk with the people at the museum and the art museum. So that was a great experience that I can't even imagine. It would have never happened without just trying to find pictures for this book.
Wow. That is so incredible. It's almost like there's just so many stories, not just the stories of the day in history, but also the stories of how you acquired all of those images.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is so incredible. Wow.
It's been sort of difficult to come down from this project,
Yeah.
because I did this for so long and sort of eventually got good at it. I definitely had huge struggles, but by the end of it, I got pretty good, and it was kind of fun. And then all of a sudden, it's
Done.
It's done. It looks fabulous,
It
but now
does.
I don't have that fun thing to do every day.
We never know. There could always be a volume 2. Oh, wow. Okay, so moving on. We have, you've sent us a couple of images that we are going to just go into, talk about just a little bit,
Sure.
As far as how you got them, how they're incorporated into the book. So this first one here, we've got a lot of North Carolina-based products. So talk to me a little bit
Sure,
about
that was
this.
a real easy part of the blog. When we did have the luxury of going in and saying, we need to tell these stories. This is an example of some of those stories that you have to tell.
Yeah.
North Carolina is the home of a lot of interesting products and businesses. Thomasville Buses, they were great. I ended up calling that company, which is owned by a bigger bus company now, or bigger vehicle company, but they still have the archives for the Pearlie Thomas Company, and they sent me that great picture. Vicks. A lot of people don't realize that Vicks Vapor Rub started in North Carolina with the druggist in Greensboro. Pepsi. I think most people do know Pepsi was born here.
Yeah.
But you got to tell that story. And Bojangles, that's always one of the most popular days that we share. I think you put it out there around lunchtime, and people just go crazy.
That's true.
Bojangles, that was born in North Carolina, and obviously Mount Olive Pickles, they were fantastic to work with. They sent me not only a day, they provided me with the day because I didn't have a day.
Oh, nice.
And then sent me some really good images. They were a good company to work with. But there's so many. Earlier I had the book on Texas Pete.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just a lot of good products. Cheerwine,
Yeah.
Krispy
There's
Kreme donuts.
so many incredible food things and also medicinal things come from North Carolina. It's
Sure.
really awesome that they're in this book, too.
Sure.
All right, next photo.
So that was another really fun thing for me, was to find an image that was of the day that I would. So the Death to the Klan rally march was November the 3rd, and I actually found this poster, which is a great image to remind people how that day began. You know, that was what ended up as the Greensboro Massacre, but it was this march, and finding the poster was really exciting. So it's really fun for me to find an image from a day. I also had an image of George Preddy, actually taken on the day that he had checked back in and was signing off on his report for his flight, where he had shot down enough enemy planes to secure Medal of Honor.
Yeah, that is incredible. I'm sure there's pictures of, people talking about their birth and their death. If, obviously it's hard to find a picture of somebody who was born on a day, and then you have like the
Right.
birth picture.
Right.
But to
that
have
didn't happen.
sure, but so to have an image of something that happened not just on that day, but like on that very specific day that
Right.
of what you're writing about in this book.
Right.
It was just so fascinating.
That was always sort of like the holy grail for me, was
Yeah.
was finding the day.
That is amazing.
Something from the day.
Yes, absolutely incredible. All right. Next photo. This looks fun.
So yeah, another fun story is the Land of Oz, and they're not open to the public anymore. And I happened, as I said, I was going up through the calendar, and I got to needing a picture of the Land of Oz the week after they closed for the summer. They
wow.
open about 1 week every summer for people like me who remember going as a little kid, and just to sort of relive that adventure of walking around in the Land of Oz. And they had just closed, and I just knew I was not going to be able to get anything from them. So I actually had a friend who grew up across the street who had been at the Land of Oz while they were open the week prior, and he had posted some pictures on Facebook that would have been fine. They would have been great. They were from his day there.
Okay.
But I really wanted that image of the 70s.
Yeah, sure.
And I emailed him, and within a day or so, he emailed back with a couple of classics 1970s
Wow.
pictures of the cast.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was great. I love that people just chipped in and helped with things, and it's really promoting his business too. But what a great memory for those of us who went
Sure.
in the 70s to
Absolutely.
see the costumes.
And that's another incredible thing about this book too, is reaching out, and it seems so much like a collective effort on the part of everyone who took part in these moments in history. That's just really fascinating to me, how all these different companies or people
Sure.
with different events, they, when you reached out to them, they came to the rescue, so to
Oh,
speak.
absolutely. And it's promotion for anybody involved. We're promoting. One thing I would say the book does, and it's sort of like the historical marker program, we're not saying things, we're not passing judgment on subjects in the book. We're not saying things were great or things were bad. We're just saying that they happened. And we're just telling what happened on this day. So most people wanted to be a part of that and to tell their story.
Sure. Lovely. All right. Next photo.
And speaking also of just, if I can
Yeah.
just
Sure.
interject, talking about all the people involved, there were also just a whole lot of people involved within the agency writing these over the years.
Yeah.
There were people from the History Museum, there were people from Historic Preservation, people in the archives. There were several people in the archives who wrote things for us. So it was a big joint effort over the years of getting all these essays written. It was definitely not just me, definitely not me and Jeff. We picked all the topics, but people really enjoyed writing these. We would throw out the topics to a group of people, and they would just check back in and say, "Oh, I want this one and this one." So over the years, people came to look forward to seeing what they might be able to write about each month.
Oh yeah, that is incredible. So many, not just all the people in North Carolina, it seems, just came together
Sure,
to put this
sure.
book together. That's
And
really
every once in a
amazing.
while, once the blog was getting going, we would have people from the public say, "Oh, can you tell this story?" And we'd always say, "Sure,
Oh,
you
wow.
write us the essay."
Yeah.
And
It
we'll
is
get it in
North
there.
Carolina's history to tell.
Sure,
That's
sure.
true. All right, let's move
So
on to the next
This
photo.
story is a favorite of mine because there's only one leap day, so I had one story for leap day, and actually just finding the story for leap day was kind of miraculous. A gentleman had contacted me as the historical marker administrator about having a historical marker about the longest high school basketball game of all time, which was in 1964 in Harnett County. And I was doing the blog at the time, and I said, "Well, that's not going to qualify for a historical marker, but I am absolutely going to put this in the blog." So we wrote the blog, and then when it came time to doing the pictures for the book, that was the only option I had for finding a picture, and that was not going to work out. I mean, there weren't. If there were photographers there taking pictures, they're long since lost.
Sure.
So we were already looking into clip art, about Leap Day, just to fill the space.
Sure.
But I also sort of took those things as challenges, and I had the luxury of time sometimes, and I did spend about a day and a half looking around for this, and ran into a reporter who had written a story about a woman who had gone in the high school where the basketball game was held, was about to be torn down, and a woman had gone in and found this box of uniforms that had belonged to that team, and she took them home and washed them in order to raffle them off to raise money for I don't even remember the cause, maybe a local YMCA or something. So he had this picture of the uniforms from that game hanging on a line. It's just great.
That is so great.
It's just, I love it. I love the uniforms. They look so 1960s.
Yeah.
They're getting new life. They have a purpose. They're going to raise money. And I just loved everything about that picture. So I was really excited to have that.
Well, and visually, it's an incredible picture.
Sure,
yeah.
it's perfect.
It looks amazing. And that's such a cool story, too. The longest high school basketball
Yes,
game.
it was. If people out there are interested, it went into 13 overtimes.
Wow. That is a long time. I can only imagine everyone like how many people were there towards the end of the game. Just like, okay, great game. All right. Next photo.
So this is another great story. That what I would find in doing the pictures for the book was I would read them from the perspective of, say, my parents or somebody who just didn't know the story. And I'd think, there's going to be some stories that people just want to see a picture. Mm-hmm. You need to see a picture in order to sort of process the story. And this gentleman was born in Winston-Salem. His name was Sylvester Long, and he was a mixed-race child. He was often told he had features that were sort of Indian, and so he eventually styled himself as an Indian and became Buffalo Child Long Lance, and was for a time the most famous Indian in North America.
Wow.
And so you read that story and you just gotta have a picture of him.
Yeah.
You just want to say, wow, how did he do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he does look very Indian. So there weren't that many pictures of him, and this picture was owned by the Atlanta Constitution, and it may actually have been the most expensive picture for the book, and I had to. They waived a lot of fees and let me have it as a sort of an educational publication, but I think I paid $25 for this one. But you had to. You had to have a picture of him.
That's true, and it's like what you said before, you're telling these parts of history, and unfortunately that's kind of odd to say the least part of history, but you're absolutely right. Something that definitely needs to be mentioned and have some visual reference for, because it's one thing to read that story, it's another thing to actually see that image corresponding with it.
Right.
Very true. All right. Photo.
So most people have heard of the original Siamese twins, the Ang and Chang bunker from Siam, and what most people don't realize is we were actually, North Carolina's home to 3 sets of conjoined twins.
Wow.
And again, people want to see images. It's just the reality. While they were all more than curiosities, people still want to see what they looked like. They want to try to process how they were joined.
Sure.
And just when you read how they went through life, it just helps to be able to have seen them. So it was really a challenge to find images of all of them. With Violet and Daisy Hilton, I actually was able to get that one from the Library of Congress. That was a picture of them being fingerprinted. As an example of what they were showing there was that everybody's fingerprints are different. Even though were conjoined twins, they looked alike.
Oh,
they're
okay.
joined and, might even be considered one person. They had a unique fingerprint, so they are being fingerprinted. Sort of having just said that, Millie Christine McCoy, she actually did consider herself one person.
Oh.
She called herself Millie Christine.
Interesting. And so, that's such an interesting fact about North Carolina history, how there were 3 different sets throughout history, and you're absolutely right.
Sure.
It's definitely, there's so much of history, as rich as it is, that as we've been saying throughout this entire presentation, that pictures and visualization of that is very important.
Right. And that's where I feel like the book has really come through. We were able to put together a nice picture book. I hope that people will read the essays, but I think flipping through it might be the images that stop people to read the stories.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously people are going to look up their birthdays and things like that.
Yeah.
Who's not going to do that?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, for sure. So those are all the images you sent us. Thank you so much for giving us a chance to take a look at those. So I don't think anybody has anything. No questions.
Okay.
No worries. We will still, if you have any questions after this presentation, you can still feel free to put them in the comments. We will definitely get around to them.
Sure.
Ms. Ansley, is there anything else you wanted us to touch on? Anything that you think is worth mentioning before we tell these lovely people to have a great day?
I have not seen the book on It's going to be available through Amazon,
Yes.
but it's not showing up as being orderable at this point. It is at UNC Press.
Great.
Because my parents ordered a case of them already.
Nice.
So you can order it from UNC Press and hopefully soon from Amazon. And it should be at local bookstores. I think I'm going to be doing a couple of talks
Awesome.
at bookstores.
That's so great. And also the blogs of these days in histories are still available,
Correct.
I believe, on Natural and Cultural Resources blog page, which if you go to ncdcr.gov, I believe, is where you can find those.
It does.
But also, who wouldn't want to see that, have them in your own hands, have them tangible and able to look at and flip through each day. I think that is just so interesting. I know I would love a copy to have on my coffee table, so when people come over, would you like some history?
Or just look up your birthday.
That's
'Cause
right.
I don't think anybody can resist that.
That's true. That's one of the
Do you
first
want to go
things
ahead and
I'm
look
sure.
up your birthday?
Actually, that would be great. So my birthday is January 6th.
Oh, you're early.
Yes.
And to me, it's always sort of like when people do this,
Oh, here we go.
I look at, I hope that I've passed. I hope that I've found something good for your birthday.
Well, I will say the first thing that comes up is Central Prison opens in Raleigh. So there's that. Pioneering Black physician James F. Schober of Wilmington.
We
Who
got
share a
Earl
birthday.
Earl Scruggs.
Oh, very nice. Share a lot of birthdays. Federal investment boosted RTP in 1965. Oh,
So that was sort of the opportunity to tell the RTP story.
yeah. It's a good one. And there's 4. This is lots happening.
Another example like that just reminded me of one where we kind of struggled to find a day associated with somebody, and that Thomas Day, the furniture maker. We ended up the day to go through him is an advertisement for his furniture appeared in the paper, which is kind of lame, but we needed to fill the day, and we didn't have a birthday, so we did a day that's kind of a tangent into just telling that story.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is so great. All right. Well, Miss Ansley, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for bringing this book in and talking about it and giving us a chance to just explore the little snippets and little days of North Carolina history. And everyone watching at home, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you have any questions after this is over, feel free to put them in the comments, and we will get to them. And again, thank you so much, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.